Ethan sat hunched over his desk, the glow of the computer screen reflecting off his face as he typed furiously. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he cracked the encryption, his mind racing faster than his fingers. The file had been hidden too well, but his persistence had paid off. As the last string of code finally decoded, a chilling message appeared on the screen. It wasn't just a hack. It was a revelation, a conspiracy, something that could bring the government to its knees. Ethan's heart raced as the gravity of the situation settled in. He wasn't just uncovering a story, he was uncovering a disaster that could change everything. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure whether to delete the file or keep going. Trusting no one, he backed it up to a secure server before continuing. The noise from the street below filtered into the room, the muffled hum of the city contrasting the eerie silence inside his apartment. Was he alone? Or was someone watching him, waiting for him to make his next move? The tension hung thick, and for the first time, Ethan wondered if this was a fight he could win. Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he pressed the phone to his ear, waiting for Lucas's voice on the other end. Lucas had always been the level-headed one, the one who could talk him down when things got too crazy. But this time, things were different. Ethan's heart pounded as the realization that he might be in too deep settled over him. His best friend had to know something about the files, about the conspiracy. As the phone rang, Ethan replayed the conversation in his mind, questioning everything. Why had Lucas been so calm when he called earlier? Should he have been more cautious? The call finally connected, and Lucas's voice echoed in his ear. Ethan, what's going on? Lucas sounded almost casual, but Ethan could hear the undertone of concern. I need your help, man. You have to look at something. This isn't just some random data I cracked. This is bigger than anything we've ever dealt with. Lucas paused on the other end, and Ethan could almost hear the gears turning. I don't know, man. This is dangerous, Lucas said, his voice sounding distant. Ethan could feel the weight of his words. Was he trying to protect him or scare him off? Ethan's fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure of where to go next. Lucas's words weighed heavily on his mind. The warning, the hesitation. Was it fear for his safety? Or was it a sign that Lucas was hiding something? Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something didn't add up. With a deep breath, he refocused on the data in front of him. The encrypted file wasn't just information. It was a blueprint, a map of connections spanning back decades. As his eyes scanned the names, the addresses, the political ties, the dots began to connect in ways he hadn't imagined. This wasn't just a conspiracy. It was a carefully constructed operation, one that reached deep into the core of the government. His heart raced as he realized that his small act of curiosity had opened a door that would take him far beyond anything he had ever anticipated. He glanced at his phone again, considering calling Lucas once more. But something stopped him. No, this was his fight now. He would have to keep going alone. A sudden ping from his phone snapped Ethan out of his trance. It was a message from Rachel, his former friend turned government agent. He hadn't heard from her in years, not since the fallout from their last heated argument. Ethan hesitated, his finger hovering over the screen. Was she reaching out to warn him, or was she part of the conspiracy all along? The message was short. We need to talk. Ethan's mind raced. Should he trust her? Could he afford not to? He knew better than to trust someone who worked within the system. But something about Rachel's tone caught him off guard. There was a vulnerability in her words, a sense that maybe she too was caught in something much bigger than either of them. Taking a deep breath, he typed back, "Where?" The reply came almost immediately. "I'm sending the details." Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision he had just made. This wasn't going to end well, but it was the only choice he had. The meeting place was an abandoned building in the outskirts of the city, dark, quiet, and isolated. Ethan's heart pounded as he approached the entrance, every step echoing in the hollow silence. He had no idea what he was walking into. Rachel could be leading him into a trap, or worse, she could be involved in the conspiracy. But deep down, Ethan knew he had to take this risk. He couldn't back down now. As he stepped into the darkened building, The smell of damp concrete and mildew hit him. The place was eerily silent, and Ethan could hear the faintest shuffle of feet echoing in the distance. His mind raced. Was this a setup? A sound from the shadows snapped him back to reality. There she was, Rachel, standing in the darkness, her silhouette barely visible. She stepped forward into the light, her features partially obscured by the dim glow. Her face was serious, but there was something else there too, something that said she was conflicted, torn between the truth and the job she had been forced to do. "You came," she said, her voice low. Ethan's gaze locked with hers, and for a moment he felt the weight of all the years that had passed between them. "I don't have much time," she continued. "They're onto you, Ethan. They know you're getting close." Ethan stood at the edge of a bustling city street, his senses heightened. The weight of what he had uncovered was starting to settle in, and every glance from a passerby felt like a potential threat. The anonymity of the crowd was a false sense of security. He couldn't trust anyone, not even Lucas anymore. The betrayal had hit harder than he expected. Lucas, the one person who had always been by his side, had left him in the cold. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, and the paranoia gnawed at him with every step he took. His phone buzzed and his heart skipped a beat. A message from Rachel. She had warned him earlier that things were spiraling, but now the message felt more like a warning. "They're close. Don't trust anyone." Ethan read the message several times, the words starting to blur into the background. He couldn't trust Rachel either, not after everything that had happened. But there was no turning back now. The pieces of the conspiracy were coming together, and the picture they formed was far darker than he had ever imagined. With a deep breath, Ethan made a decision. It was time to confront the truth, no matter the cost. Ethan's mind raced as he walked through the narrow alley, the city's noise muffled by the buildings surrounding him. He couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in. His phone buzzed again, and this time, it was a call from Lucas. He hesitated before answering, the betrayal still fresh in his mind. "Ethan, where are you?" Lucas asked, his voice sounding strained, almost anxious. "I'm out here, Lucas. Why didn't you tell me the truth?" Ethan's voice was sharp, laced with anger. Lucas remained quiet on the other end for a moment. "Ethan, listen. They're after you. They found out you're digging into the files. You need to get out of here." Ethan felt his pulse quicken. "Why should I trust you? You lied to me." Lucas's voice cracked with urgency. "I'm trying to help you. Just get somewhere safe, and we'll figure this out." Ethan's hands clenched into fists as he ended the call. The truth was, he didn't know who to trust anymore. Everything was falling apart, and the closer he got to the truth, the more dangerous it became. The following hours were a blur. Ethan couldn't shake the anxiety that gripped him, knowing that every move he made could be his last. He made his way to a safe house, a hidden location provided by Rachel. It was an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city, forgotten by most but still holding a sense of security. As he stepped inside, the sound of his footsteps echoed off the concrete walls. The place smelled of dust and neglect, but it was safe for now. Rachel had said she'd meet him there, but Ethan wasn't sure if he could trust her. She had played him once before, and he couldn't afford to make that mistake again. The sound of a door creaking open broke his thoughts, and he turned quickly. There she was, Rachel, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and determination. "You came," she said softly. Ethan didn't respond right away, his gaze fixed on her face. "I didn't have a choice," she added, stepping forward. "We need to talk, Ethan. They know you're close. They're watching you." Ethan didn't know what to believe anymore. Rachel's words hung in the air, too close to the truth, yet laced with ambiguity. She had betrayed him once before, and yet here she was, offering him information that could be vital. "How do I know you're not lying?" Ethan asked, his voice cold, his mind racing. Rachel's eyes darkened. "I've been trying to stop this, Ethan. I don't have much time. They're closing in on you." Ethan took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. "What's your angle in all of this, Rachel? What do you really want?" She hesitated before answering. "I want to make things right," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it's not just you they're after, it's the entire operation. We need to take it down together before it destroys everything." Ethan's mind spun. He didn't want to trust her, but he didn't have a choice. The conspiracy was too big, too dangerous, and Rachel might be the only ally he had left. The room fell into a heavy silence after Rachel's words. Ethan's mind raced as he processed the gravity of what she had just said. This wasn't just about a few stolen files anymore. It was about a network, an operation that spanned far beyond anything he had imagined. "I don't know if I can do this," Ethan muttered, his voice almost breaking. "I'm not asking you to do it alone," Rachel replied quietly. "We have to stop them before they silence us for good." Ethan nodded, though doubt still lingered. The stakes had just escalated, and he was no longer sure of who the real enemy was. The room was dark, the air thick with the weight of the decision ahead. He knew there was no turning back now. If he was going to expose the truth, he would need to confront the very people who had been pulling the strings for years. And Rachel, she was his only chance. Ethan sat at the small table in the dingy motel room, the dim overhead light flickering above him. He stared at the files spread across the table, their contents a maze of corruption and deceit that went deeper than he could have ever imagined. The weight of the situation pressed down on him, his mind spinning. Rachel had been right. The conspiracy wasn't just within the government. It extended into major corporations, media outlets, and even law enforcement. They had built an empire of control, pulling the strings from the shadows. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his thoughts a blur. He thought he was ready to expose the truth, but now, standing on the edge of this nightmare, doubt crept in. The people he had once trusted, the institutions he had believed in, were all part of this web. Was he even strong enough to bring it all down? Every move he made now felt like it could be his last. The enemies closing in were not just dangerous, they were everywhere. Ethan clenched his fists, the anger rising in his chest. He couldn't back down now. He had come too far, and the truth had to be exposed. But there was one problem. The deeper he dug, the more powerful his enemies became. Was the cost of truth more than he could afford? Ethan's phone buzzed, and he hesitated before picking it up. He already knew it was Lucas. The guilt and anger were still fresh, but if anyone could help him now, it was Lucas. He didn't have a choice. "Ethan," Lucas's voice crackled through the line. "You need to move. They're closing in on you, and if you don't act now, it'll be too late." Ethan's heart raced. "What's going on, Lucas? Why did you help them? Why the betrayal?" Lucas sighed on the other end. "I didn't have a choice, Ethan. You have no idea what they can do, what they're capable of. But you're right, I was wrong. And I can help you now. But you need to trust me." Ethan gritted his teeth, torn between his anger and the need for answers. "You want me to trust you after everything?" Lucas paused before answering. "I'll explain everything, but you have to act fast. Get to the safe house now." The line went dead, leaving Ethan staring at his phone, conflicted. Could he trust Lucas again? The question gnawed at him as he stood up, determined to take the next step, despite the uncertainty that still surrounded him. The safe house was supposed to be a refuge, a place where he could lay low and plan his next move. But when Ethan arrived, the door was already ajar. His pulse quickened as he stepped inside, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and old furniture. There were no signs of a struggle, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. He reached for his phone, intending to call Rachel, but the screen flickered before going black. "Shit," he muttered under his breath. His heart raced as he moved deeper into the house, every creak of the floorboards amplifying his anxiety. Something wasn't right. A shadow moved in the corner of his eye, and he turned, instinctively pulling out his gun. The figure stepped into the light. It was Rachel, her face grim and eyes cold. "You shouldn't have come," she said softly, her voice carrying a strange finality. Ethan froze. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice shaky. "You're already too late. They know everything." Ethan couldn't believe what he was hearing. Rachel, the person he thought he could trust, was now standing in front of him, telling him that it was already too late. "What do you mean, Rachel? What's going on?" he demanded, his voice shaking. Rachel stepped closer, her eyes filled with regret. "You've been played, Ethan. The files you have, they're not just dangerous, they're lethal." Ethan stepped back, trying to process the weight of her words. "You're saying, all this time you've been lying to me?" Rachel looked down for a moment, then met his gaze. "No, I wasn't lying. I was trying to protect you. But I couldn't stop them. They've already infiltrated everything." She paused before continuing, her voice softer. "You're walking into something much bigger than you realize. They've been watching you, planning this for months." Ethan's world seemed to collapse around him as the realization hit. The conspiracy wasn't just a fight for truth, it was a battle for his life. Ethan couldn't take it anymore. The weight of the lies, the betrayal, the threat against his life, it all came crashing down at once. He looked at Rachel, his eyes burning with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You could have told me. You should have told me." Rachel shook her head slowly. "I was trying to protect you, Ethan. The truth is more dangerous than you know. You're not ready for it. Then what am I supposed to do now?" Ethan shouted, his voice rising in frustration. "You've already set the wheels in motion. Now there's no going back." Rachel's face softened slightly, but the tension in the room remained thick. "You're right. We can't undo what's been done. But there's still time to stop them." Ethan's mind raced. He couldn't trust her completely, but he knew that if he was going to survive, he had to follow through. The battle wasn't just about exposing the truth, it was about surviving it. With a final glance at Rachel, he nodded. "Then let's finish this." Ethan stood in the shadows of the abandoned building, heart pounding. The conspiracy had gone too far. The files he had uncovered were just the beginning, and now he was the target. His phone buzzed with an anonymous message. "Get out, they're coming for you." The weight of the words was enough to freeze him in place. He couldn't trust anyone. Trust had already betrayed him. Ethan pulled his hood up, his breath shallow as he scanned the dark alley. The hunt was on. He couldn't hide forever, but he wasn't going down without a fight. The moment he stepped out of the shadows, the game would change. Ethan's phone buzzed again. It was a message from Rachel. "Meet me at the pier. We have one shot at this." He hesitated. Trusting Rachel was risky, but at this point, he had no other choice. The city was on edge, and every corner felt like a trap. His heart raced as he moved through the streets, each step a countdown. The pier was isolated, the perfect place for a showdown. But with every passing minute, the realization dawned. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about saving countless lives, or destroying everything. As Ethan approached the pier, he saw Rachel's figure standing in the distance, the faint glow of a street lamp casting shadows around her. The air was thick with tension, and the sound of crashing waves was the only thing that broke the silence. "You came," Rachel said, her voice calm but filled with urgency. Ethan nodded, his eyes scanning the area. "We don't have much time," he replied. Rachel stepped forward, revealing a briefcase filled with documents. "This is our only chance to expose everything. We need to move fast." Ethan's mind raced. Could he trust her one last time? Suddenly, a car's headlights appeared in the distance, blinding them. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "They're here," he whispered. Rachel grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the nearby dock. The moment of truth had arrived. They had one shot to stop the conspiracy from spreading further, but with every passing second, the stakes grew higher. Ethan's fingers tightened around the gun, his mind racing. Would they make it out alive? Could he stop them in time? The answer seemed uncertain, but there was no turning back now. The car finally stopped, and men in dark suits emerged. Ethan's grip tightened on his gun. "Now," he muttered. Without hesitation, he and Rachel sprang into action. A firefight erupted as bullets flew through the air, the sound deafening. Ethan moved quickly, staying low, trying to get to the documents before it was too late. Every move was calculated, but fear still gripped him. Was it too late to change the outcome? As the dust settled, Ethan stood over the fallen men, panting, his heart still racing. The documents were safe for now, but the battle wasn't over. Ethan stared at the documents in his hand, the truth staring back at him. It wasn't just a government conspiracy. It was a global network, and it ran deeper than he ever imagined. He had the evidence, but now he had to figure out how to expose it without putting himself or others in harm's way. His phone buzzed again. It was Rachel. "We're running out of time," she said. "We have to go public, but we need a plan." Ethan sighed, looking around the empty room. The weight of the decision was crushing. Could he trust anyone anymore? The truth was dangerous, but it was the only weapon he had left. Rachel arrived soon after, her face filled with urgency. "You're running out of time, Ethan," she said, moving quickly to the table. "We need to act fast." Ethan nodded, his eyes still fixed on the documents. "How do we know this won't get us killed?" he asked. Rachel took a deep breath. "We're already risking everything, but if we don't act, they'll silence us before we even have a chance." The stakes were higher now than ever before. There was no turning back. Ethan looked up at Rachel, determination flooding his veins. "Then let's do it." Ethan and Rachel made their way to the media headquarters, the truth ready to be exposed. But as they entered the building, the reality of their situation hit. Every face in the room seemed to be an enemy, every step they took more dangerous than the last. The elevator doors opened, and a cold sense of dread filled the air. "Are you sure about this?" Rachel asked, her voice tense. Ethan nodded, his jaw set. "We don't have a choice. It's now or never." The door to the media office swung open, and Ethan stepped forward, determined to expose the conspiracy once and for all. The room fell silent as Ethan and Rachel entered, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. "We need to get this out now," Ethan said, his voice firm. The reporters around him exchanged nervous glances. "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" one of them asked. Ethan nodded. The truth must come out no matter the cost. As the first article began to take shape, the reality of what they were doing settled in. There was no going back. This was it. The world was about to know everything. The article went live, and Ethan stared at the screen as the world began to react. The truth was out there now, and the repercussions were immediate. The phone rang incessantly, but Ethan didn't pick up. He couldn't. The cost of revealing the conspiracy had been steep. Lives would be lost, but it was too late to stop now. As the chaos unfolded, Ethan looked at Rachel, his only ally. "We did it," he whispered, but doubt lingered in his eyes. "Did we?" Rachel replied, her face grim. "The battle's just begun." The world had shifted. The story was out, but with it came chaos. News outlets were scrambling, and Ethan couldn't escape the flood of messages, threats, and calls. Rachel remained by his side, but the constant pressure to stay ahead was wearing them both thin. "We did the right thing," Rachel said, but her voice lacked conviction. Ethan stared out the window at the chaos outside. The city was on edge. "Is it enough?" he asked quietly. Rachel met his gaze. "It's just the beginning. Now they'll come after us." Ethan nodded. He knew the risks, but the truth had been exposed, and there was no turning back. The next few days felt like a blur. People Ethan had never met began contacting him, some with gratitude, others with threats. The system they had exposed was vast, and the people behind it were far more powerful than they'd anticipated. "We can't trust anyone now," Rachel said, her voice tight with anxiety. Ethan nodded. He had always been a hacker, an outsider, but now he was something else entirely. A target. "We'll keep moving, keep exposing them piece by piece," he said. "It's our only shot." But as the walls closed in, Ethan realized the truth was becoming more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Ethan sat in the back of a car, watching the city pass by. The feeling of being constantly hunted was beginning to take its toll. "I never imagined it would come to this," he muttered to himself. Rachel sat beside him, her eyes scanning the streets. "No one does," she replied. "But the truth doesn't come without a price." As they neared a hidden location, Ethan felt a pang of uncertainty. Were they doing enough to stop the conspiracy, or were they just making things worse? They had come this far, but the fight was far from over. The safe house they arrived at was more secure than the last. The walls were thick, the doors reinforced. "We're staying here for now," Rachel said, locking the door behind them. Ethan nodded but couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. He paced the room, the pressure of the situation mounting with each passing hour. Rachel looked at him. "You need to rest," she said gently. "We've come this far. We can't stop now." But rest felt impossible. Every moment was a countdown, and Ethan wasn't sure how much longer they could keep running from the storm they had unleashed. The morning after, everything changed. The door to the safe house burst open. Figures in black suits stormed inside. Ethan's heart raced. There was no way out. Rachel's hand gripped his arm, pulling him toward the back exit. "We have one chance," she whispered. Ethan's mind spun as they made their way through the hidden passages of the building. With every step, they got closer to the truth. But now, the danger wasn't just from the conspiracy. It was from the people trying to cover it up. If they didn't act fast, it would all be over. Ethan and Rachel found themselves cornered in an underground tunnel. Their pursuit had been relentless, and now, with nowhere to run, they had to make their stand. "This is it," Ethan muttered, looking at Rachel. She didn't respond immediately but gave him a determined nod. "We expose them here. There's no turning back." Ethan's chest tightened as he looked down at the documents in his hands. This was the moment. They could either change everything or lose everything. "It's now or never," he said. Rachel looked at him. "We're in this together. Let's do it." The sound of footsteps grew louder as they made their way deeper into the tunnel. "They're getting closer," Rachel said, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan nodded, his pulse quickening. The documents they carried contained everything. The names, the connections, the proof. One wrong move, and they would be silenced. But Ethan was done running. He turned to Rachel. "We have to do this. We have to expose them." Rachel hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I'm with you. Let's end this." As they reached the end of the tunnel, the door to the outside world was within reach. Ethan's hand trembled as he reached for the handle. They were so close to exposing everything. But he knew the moment they stepped out, they would be walking into the storm. "This is it," Rachel said, her voice steady despite the danger. Ethan nodded, pushing the door open. "Once we do this, there's no turning back." They stepped outside, the harsh sunlight blinding them as they emerged into the world. The battle for truth had just begun. As they stepped into the light, the world outside felt different. The air was thick with tension, and every sound seemed amplified. But Ethan knew what they had to do. "The world needs to see this," he said, holding the documents high. "This is the truth." Rachel stood beside him, her gaze unwavering. "Then, let's make sure they hear it." Together, they walked toward the gathering crowd, ready to share the truth, no matter the cost. The world erupted into chaos as the truth spread. Ethan and Rachel watched from a distance, the weight of their actions settling in. "We did it," Ethan said quietly, but Rachel shook her head. "It's just the beginning." Ethan turned to her, a sense of finality in his voice. "Then we'll keep fighting. We've come this far." Together, they watched as the world began to change, knowing that the battle for justice had only just begun.